MC the proceedings for this evening. First of all, I'd like to thank Brickworks Design Studio for having us here tonight. Stevie Arena, the events manager, and her team. Thank you, Stevie. I saw you here somewhere before, and she's snuck there. She's at the back there. But thank you all very much for allowing us to be here. Also, in-house Group 3, I'd like to thank Elaine Chazelle and Nadia Cabon for organising the event tonight. And don't forget that if you are an architect, you earn 1 formal CPD point tonight. If you are a builder or a designer, you will earn 2 formal CPD points for this evening. So we do appreciate you attending tonight. We'd like to thank our sponsors. First of all, Mark Griffith from Big Ass Fans is not here tonight, but we'd like to thank them for their contribution. Also like to thank Jonathan Clark from Mainland Power, who is here tonight. Jonathan, thank you very much. And I'd like to introduce Mark Pullum from UBIC, who would like to come forward as one of the sponsors to say a few words. So Mark, would you like to come forward? Thank you.
Little house. Yeah, thank you very much for that introduction, and thanks again to our good friends at Brickworks. UBIC and Brickworks are spending a lot of time together, it seems. I see some familiar faces and some not so familiar faces, but if you've heard this before, so be it. My name's Mark Pullum from UBIC. I'm the CEO of UBIC and an architect like probably some of you. UBIC is a company founded by architects for the construction industry. Extremely topically to tonight's agenda. The objective of UBIC is very, very clear. It sits on page 1 of our business plan, above and before everything else, and it is this. It is UBIC's objective to deliver to the construction industry a new range of building materials that in their use and their manufacture do not cause harm to our planet or its occupants. That's absolutely the first thing we look at and the thing we consider after that. After that, open brackets, and to facilitate the creation of beauty. So it's a good set of products as well. After that, ipso facto, make a lot of money for your shareholders. If you get the first one right, and the second one right in the brackets, the third will follow. And that's our objective. That's why I stopped being a practicing architect here in Sydney. So I ask you to look at our products and look at the things that we do. You will hear a number of statistics tonight, I'm sure. One of them I read with our first speaker is that 40% of the built environment, the built environment contributes to 40% of the carbon emissions of this planet. Well, fine-tuning that, 7% of anthropogenic emissions come from the production of Portland cement, which is, frankly, yesterday's technology. Ours is a cement technology and produces, once it gets to market, 1/3 of those carbon emissions, and then over the next 10 years will absorb that 1/3 in carbon sequestration. So we are a carbon neutral product to market. Put that into perspective, the traditional Portland cement derived materials, which are part of the family that we produce, lightweight products, if you put you guys specify 75 square meters of a fiber cement on the cladding of a building, whether it's an express wall system, whether it's something that's got a covering on or a coating, that delivers to the sky 1 ton, I repeat, 1 ton of carbon dioxide, which ain't coming back down again. 50 square meters of fiber cement floor, 1 ton of CO2, which ain't coming back. Ourselves, 0. Now, as I recognized as an architect many years ago, we've got incredible power at our fingertips, our specifying fingertips. And with that power comes incredible responsibility. And I wouldn't be asking you to look at our products if I didn't think they were simpler, better, and more affordable as well. Low carbon products quite often come with a premium, whether it's cost or performance, not us. I'd like to think that we're delivering improved products anyway. So that's enough about me barking up my tree, and I'll hand you back. Enjoy your evening. Look forward to the talks, and thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Well, the keynote speaker for this evening needs no introduction. Kate St. James, as many of you would know, is an interior designer, magazine editor, amongst other things, with more than 35 years. Kate, do we actually put a number on it? Clearly we do, 35 years. I thought once you get to 20, you say well over 20 years. But you've named it tonight, 35 years of experience in the design industry. Kate has always had a passion for the environment and believes that eco-friendly, sustainable interiors can impact our lives in a positive way by providing environmental benefits, economic benefits, health benefits, and social community benefits. Kate St James gives an enormous amount of her time professionally to this industry. Kate St James gives an enormous amount of her personal time to this industry. Would you please welcome Kate St James?
What a lovely introduction. Thank you, John. Hello, everyone. It's pretty hot out there still, I think, isn't it? Yeah? I'm a bit cold in here. Funny the weather. So, sustainability. You're all architects, you know all about this, don't you? Don't you? How many of you are architects in the audience? How many interior designers? How many of you are not any of that, but perhaps specifiers or builders? Okay, fantastic. So I'm sure you've heard a lot about sustainability and sustainable design, and I'm really pleased that you're here tonight because it gives me hope. It gives me hope for our industry, and it gives me hope for the planet. Because all of us in this room have an impact for the future of our world and for the future of our planet. And that may sound dramatic, but as was mentioned earlier, the building industry has an enormous impact on our environment. According to the National Australian Built Environment Rating System, NABERS, buildings use 40% of the world's energy, emit 40% of the world's carbon, and use 20% of the world's drinkable water. I think they're pretty staggering numbers. But it's not all bad news, and I haven't come to depress you tonight. I've come to have a conversation with you, because we're all in this together, this industry, and I think the more we can talk about it, and the more time we spend with each other discussing how we can all work together, then I think the future looks bright. So to start with, I want to explain to you a little bit about my background, where I've come from. John said I've been in the industry for 35 years. Well, it's actually about 40 years. But the 40 years is when I first became aware of the word sustainability. Now, I was a girl from London, and I grew up in concrete jungle. And yes, there were parks and, places like that. But I used to walk around with my eyes closed. And I came to Australia in 1968, and I travelled around Australia, and I saw the amazing beauty of this country. And then I came back, and I worked in Sydney for a big international accounting firm, making lots of money, looking after people's businesses, and we weren't really talking about sustainability in that company. But in that building, which was in North Sydney, there was a lift that I used to catch every day to go down for lunch. And in that lift, there was this young man standing in the corner. And the first time the door opened, and he was in his, this was in the 70s, he was in his hand-knitted, I think they called them, I can't remember, little jumper with the short sleeves and the body shirt and the flares. And the second time I got in the lift, he was there again. Hello. The third time I got in the lift, he was there again. And I thought, okay, hello. And we got talking. And the next time, we got talking again. And we ended up standing on the pavement downstairs outside the building. And he started talking to me about things that I had never even considered. He talked about the environment. And I thought, what? Public transport. All those sorts of things. They actually talked about going to the moon and getting off this planet because of what we were doing to it. Now, this is in 1973. And it was a revelation to me. So one day we'd been talking for about 20 minutes, and I was getting a bit hungry by this time. And I said, I think we go and finish this conversation over coffee. So that's what we did. We went and had a coffee. And we got talking, and I found him fascinating. Now, that young man is actually here tonight. Not so young anymore, hasn't got as much hair, a little bit bigger around the girth, but he's actually my husband. And he has been the person that has mentored me, excited me, taught me about all of this, and has got me to where I am today. So thank you, Ian. So we've been together for 42 years. Not long after I met him, I set sail to England because I'd already booked that trip before I went away, but I came back. So when I came back in 1974, I'd actually lived through an energy crisis in the UK. Now, that energy crisis wasn't brought about by a lack of energy, it was brought about by politics, as you know. But I lived through the 3-day week in England, and I lived queuing up for petrol in England, where you could only go out on Monday, Wednesday and Friday, depending upon your number plate on your car, and queue for 3 hours, and could only go to work for 3 days a week. It was a pretty scary time. But I was young and resilient and probably didn't think as much about it at that time. But I think if that was to happen now here in Australia, I think we'd absolutely be scared out of our brains. But it was something that was a bit new, and you know, when you're young, you're a bit kind of, you know, you're resilient about those things, you don't think a lot about it. Anyway, I came back to Australia in '74, and there was actually a recession happening here too in the building industry. And I'd been working as a journalist and couldn't get any work as a journalist. So, cut a very long story short, because I could talk about it for quite some time. Ian and I bought a place in Rozelle. It was an old Victorian terrace house that a developer had done up. You know, it was a mess. We paid $26,000 for it, but it had great bones and it was in a fantastic part of Sydney. And we spent the next 4 years renovating that house and turning it into something that was really beautiful again. And it was that time that I thought, you know what, I'm actually quite good at this. And I actually really enjoy doing this sort of work. So I went and studied interior design. So I became an interior designer. We started our own business, moved to Byron Bay, used to design and renovate houses up there, but we specialised in energy efficient building design. We started our own business, which we ran for a number of years in Brisbane. And so I've always been passionate about sustainability and sustainable building design, because you know what, it works. We built one of the first energy efficient houses in Byron. People used to come in winter and say, where's the air conditioning? And we'd go, see that yellow thing up there in the sky? It's that. And it was a very simple, sustainable house. It wasn't as, you know, sophisticated as the houses that are being built now. But the principles are the same, you know. It hasn't really changed. Excuse me, I need a quick drink now after all that talking. You can see I get quite emotional about this too, so excuse me if I cry. It's good to have a bit of passion and emotion. You've got to have it, guys. Otherwise, you know, life's bland and boring. And look, I'm not an architect, and I certainly don't have all the answers, but I have a lot of questions and I have a lot of opinions, and I like to get the conversation started, and I like to talk to people about this. Because every day, every week, something new happens. I had a new company come to see me this week at work. I'm a magazine editor, by the way, Grand Designs Australia, among a couple of others. And I get lots of people showing me their wares and telling me how fabulous they are. And a company came to see me today. It was about flooring. And some of the information he gave me was like, I was gobsmacked about it, you know. They have a very good sustainability ethos in their company too, and I thought that was really good. But there's always something new. You know, it's not static, it doesn't stand still. We're always finding new ways of doing things. And as architects and designers and creative people, you know, this is your area, and this is what you guys do. And you've got so much influence in this industry that, you know, I think we need to discuss this so much more, so that when you go out there and you talk to your clients, you've got all that information. And you probably know yourself, it's a bit of a minefield knowing what's, you know, what should I be using here, or is this the right thing, or has it changed since I used it last week? You know, it is a bit of a minefield. But I'm optimistic that we can create ways of, you know, having sustainable interiors in today's throwaway society by making informed choices when designing projects. So as I said, I studied design, and I practiced for 20 years. And to me, the concept of conserving resources just made sense, and it still does. Another interesting statistic, when I was born in 1952, yes, I don't mind saying how old I am, the world's population was 2.6 million. If I live to 100, it'll be estimated to be 9.6 billion. 2.6 billion, 9.6 billion. 7 billion people in 100 years. I think that's a staggering number. Now, this huge increase in the population is responsible for the increased demand on our natural and man-made resources, including water, energy, food production, housing, land use, clothing and textiles, and the increase in the amount of waste products produced. It was around the 1960s, about 200 years after the Industrial Revolution, that the real impacts of the Industrial Revolution's effects were felt. And while great strides have been made from that era in improving housing and sanitation and health and social environments, the negative impacts of that new modern world slowly started to take effect. Everyone wanted televisions, everyone wanted cars, everyone wanted refrigerators, everybody wanted to consume. So while the Industrial Revolution, gave us some things that were good for us and that we wanted and that we needed, there was a lot of problems as well. And in the last 50 years, the humans have used more raw materials and created more waste than in all of previous history. So today, the world still faces many challenges to support its enormous population. And if we're to live in relative peace and harmony with our environment and sustain ourselves and our planet now and into the future, we must learn how to manage the resources we have, both the non-renewable and the renewable. Every product, no matter how green, has some environmental impact. That includes use of renewable and non-renewable resources, carbon emissions, water and energy consumption, pollution, toxicity and waste. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, Australians throw away 53 million tonnes of waste each year, much of which ends up in landfill. So that's for each and every one of us, 19 and a half, 240 litre wheelie bins of rubbish a year for everybody, man, woman and child in Australia. Now that land that we use, and I know not all of it has been just virgin land that's been turned into landfill, some of it was brick pits and various other things, but out of the city we had to make these places to dump our waste. They could be used for other purposes, such as public green space, agriculture, habitats for animals and for flora, or just left as wilderness. Landfill also causes the release of methane from the decomposition of organic wastes and greenhouse gas emissions through the transportation of waste out to those landfills where you have to travel a long way. So as designers, manufacturers and suppliers of products and materials, our role is to guide our clients and educate the consumer to make better choices for today and for the future. And by making informed decisions, we, us, because we're all in this industry, can add pleasure, value and durability to projects which don't impact on the environment in a negative way. We know sustainable interior design trends provide for long-term satisfaction, increased property value, but do people, our clients, do they care? Well, the good news is yes, they do. Working in the magazine industry, we have a lot of titles in our stable, and we're finding that there is an increase in interest in magazines on topics such as health and well-being, food, organic gardening, gardening generally, interiors and homes. And we know from our research that consumers are looking for well-balanced and healthy lifestyles that are in harmony with the environment. They also want innovative products with durable materials that are environmentally friendly. That's good news. According to a recent report by the Future Business Council, the worldwide demand for sustainable goods is booming, and the cost for green construction is dropping. That's good news. They also believe that sustainability should not be seen as a cost, but as a business opportunity. And we heard about one of those business opportunities tonight. And if the products are backed by a trusted certification scheme, clients are choosing sustainability when these options are clearly and knowledgeably explained, and that's where we come into the picture. We have to know about these things so that we can give them that information, and not then build something because the client tells us what to build. We have to lead them into what they should be building. Now, I know that's a challenge, but I am a bit of an idealist. So by choosing quality products and avoiding short-term trends, we can create interiors that age gracefully and don't become dated. Using this theory, we can contribute to the longevity of our products and ensure that new products and projects or refurbishment of existing ones can have minimal impact on resources and the environment. So what is sustainable interior design really? It's about designing with an eco-friendly approach that has a lighter environmental footprint, encourages long-term use, uses fewer renewable and non-renewable resources, improves the building's function, the health and well-being of its inhabitants, and connects people with the natural environment. Sustainable design can be as individual as you are. There are no rules about style here. They can be anything from retro or rustic to contemporary or glamorous, and anything in between. And why do we need it? Well, we need it for longevity, because buying products that don't need to be updated every few years means that we use less resources and there's less waste going into landfill. It also means that we're meeting the requirements of us now, our children, but also our grandchildren and into the future. And we need it for our health and comfort. We spend 90% of our time inside buildings. Therefore, we can improve our health, comfort and safety by using non-toxic materials, creating better thermal comfort, improved indoor air quality, and provide enhanced morale for the occupants, and a deeper connection to nature by using eco-friendly interiors. And for economy, of course, by buying better quality, longer-lasting items in the long run, we'll save money. And sales value, which is something interior designers and architects need to think about, especially in the commercial sphere. Because if you have a fabulous building that performs incredibly well, you can increase a building's value and its future sales potential. So how do we get this? When it comes to products, how do we consider what we're going to use and their effect on our interiors, including paints and carpets, loose furniture, joinery, lighting, flooring, appliances and accessories? We can specify from new, renewable sources or from existing materials by upcycling or recycling. There are many recycled or upcycled products available, including building materials, windows and doors, fireplaces, bricks, roof, tiles, hand basins, furniture, furnishings, and all sorts of things. When Ian and I recently renovated our bathroom in our 120-year-old terrace in the inner west with a 1980s bathroom, we took everything out, we reused what we could, and then I went to recycled garbage down in Marrickville and I brought all the tiles there for $120 for the lot. They were left over from a development. They could have ended up in landfill. They ended up in my place. And I think that was a win-win. Bathroom looks great, functions really well, and, it didn't cost me a fortune. A growing number of creative product designers use upcycled materials: glass, ceramics, wine bottles, textile offcuts, tyres, post-industrial seat belts, pallets and pet drink bottles, to name a few. Eco-design may also use byproducts of industry, reducing the amount of waste dumped into landfill. But, as I said, not all interiors need to look like they're retro or that you're living in a museum. It's part of being human to want to design and create and to do new things. So by manufacturing and consuming thoughtfully, we can create new products that have minimal or no impact on the environment. So new sustainable materials include FSC and PEFC certified timber, fabric made from sources such as hemp, silk, organic linen, organic cotton, wool. We can use low or no VOC paint, natural flooring such as linoleum, bamboo, rubber, cork, carpets made from corn sugar, wool and recycled materials. And we can use things like formaldehyde-free boards for kitchens and joinery, and natural dyes, and the list goes on with new products and ideas emerging regularly. But not all products are certified, and I was talking to a few people about this tonight. You know, certification is one thing, but we sort of need to do our own research as well to determine the suitability of products. And while some new products may appear more expensive in the beginning, it's important to weigh up the cost versus benefits, such as their durability, their longevity, sustainability, maintenance, and health advantages. So choose carefully, read labels, look for product certification such as GECA, Good Environmental Choice Australia, FSC, Green Tag, Fair Trade, etc. They're all third-party certifications that independently analyse products to assess their credentials. But as I said, you know, don't rely necessarily on that, because you might have Joe down in Nimitabel in his little workshop making beautiful tables or joinery from timber that he found off a bridge somewhere. And he's doing it all by hand, and you know, you can't certify things like that, but you use your own, you know, use your brain to know that that actually is a very sustainable piece of furniture. So certification's one thing, but you know, your own, using your own initiative to look at these things is another. And if you don't know where the product comes from and you're concerned about it, well, select an alternative. And of course, there are some other tools that designers can use when creating interiors. And one of those is, we finally get to the slides, I think. Help! Doesn't seem to want to move.
There's our trusty IT help. No?
Love technology, don't you?
Whilst we're waiting, Kate, we'd also like to mention and welcome the webinar participants tonight. There are over 50 people online who are actually listening to this entire presentation. So welcome to everybody who is online this evening as well.
That is technology working well, isn't it? I think we've got some in Perth and Melbourne and somewhere else around the country. Tasmania, fantastic. So technology can be good sometimes. There we go. I'm sure a lot of you know these things already, but I think it's always good to just remember about, you know, when we're looking for something, what are we looking for? We're looking for the life cycle assessment. So when considering what products to specify, it's helpful to perform a life cycle assessment to determine the environmental impacts of the products, processes, or services from the extraction of raw materials through production, packing and transportation, usage, and ultimate disposal, or hopefully recycling, so that we're looking at a cradle-to-cradle, closing the loop scenario rather than a cradle to the grave where we're sending it to landfill. And then, of course, there's the chain of custody that we can look at as well. We talked about this tonight, a few of my colleagues here. You know, it's useful to understand the chain of custody, to track the status of a product or materials through its supply chain, from the collection of raw materials to manufacture, transport, to end retailer and consumer, to ensure a product's safety and integrity. And sometimes people don't think about those things. They buy a product, they don't know where it comes from, they don't actually know what's in it, they don't know what the paint is on it. You know, these things can be very toxic. But ethical and responsible companies have this information, and they should be able to provide it And if they can't, then, as I said, shop somewhere else. So that's deliberately blank so that you're not distracted. And then, of course, another tool that architects probably use more perhaps than interior designers is NABERS. It's an assessment tool that allows us to analyse and understand a building's performance for occupant health, comfort and well-being, and its impact on the environment by measuring its use of energy and water and production of waste, which allows building owners to understand the impact their buildings have on the environment. And it's also great for potential purchasers and tenants. People want to live in healthy buildings. People want to work in healthy buildings. I've heard that buildings and offices that have Green Star rated fit outs get far more productivity out of their staff. I don't know how they actually track that, but I'm told it's actually quite true. And I'm sure that if you turn up for work in an office, that the air conditioning doesn't work properly, the chairs are broken. Simple things like that. Working in a great environment really does make a difference to your creativity, especially when you work in a creative industry. And the Green Building Council also has the Green Star ratings for interiors. Interiors that incorporate higher efficiency appliances and lighting, increased insulation, water conservation measures, are well ventilated, all lead to dollar savings for buildings and owner-operators. And the current thinking, I believe, is about 5 stars. It's considered to be pretty good. 6 stars is supposed to be excellent. But I think we should be aiming much higher, and I believe it's actually able to be achieved. Let's be looking at 8 stars and 10 stars. So I've talked a lot about materials and what we can use, why we should be using them, and let's have a look at some of the things that we can use. One of the first products is hemp. It's got to be probably my favourite product for furniture, guys. It's one of the most versatile products in the world, really. It's an ideal material for building materials like hempcrete and hemp bricks, furnishing fabrics, bed linen, furniture, and look, many other products. It's also used, as you know, in healthcare, for food. We can make plastic out of hemp, You can get 4 crops a year out of hemp. It requires very low water, no chemicals, it's self-mulching, it's strong, it's durable, it's multi-purpose, it's naturally antibacterial, so it's brilliant for bed linen, because we sleep 8 hours in a bed and there's a lot of nasty things sometimes in your bed linen. It's antibacterial and antimicrobial, so really, with hemp, what's not to love? A lot of products being made out of hemp. This chair was made from Moroso. Hemp, I think it's got hemp, eco glue and hemp, and that's it. Looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Now, there's a company in Mullumbimby, interestingly enough, in northern New South Wales. I think it's kind of the hemp capital up there, isn't it? And it's a product called Zeoform. Now, it's made from cellulose byproducts, including hemp, agricultural biomass, recycled or discarded and de-inked paper, cotton, rice, jute, cane, wood, bamboo, and any other clean cellulose material. They make things like guitars, didgeridoos, chairs, tables, so many products that they're making. In fact, I'd never heard of them until a couple of weeks ago when I was researching products that were made from hemp in Australia. I've got a house up near Mullumbimby. I'm going to be visiting them next time I go up just to see what they're about. And of course, in 1941, Henry Ford built a car using hemp. And there it is. And this one down the bottom here is made in Canada, the Kestrel. Made from hemp. The body is made from hemp. It's lighter than steel, and yet can withstand 10 times the impact. The potential for use of this material is enormous. Why aren't we using more hemp? You tell me. Carpets. A lot of us think of carpets made out of wool or fleece, and of course synthetics. But we can also make carpets out of natural fibres like corn and jute and grass, seagrass, and silk and linen and so many other materials that we can make carpets from. This is just a few. Wool carpets do sometimes, or the manufacture of wool sometimes has a bit of an environmental impact because you've got to clean and scour it. But the companies that are, you know, really into sustainability will look after that water that comes off all the stuff and they recycle it. So when you look at buying carpets, you know, look at who you're buying it from, what they do and what their environmental impact is. Wool carpet's beautiful. It's naturally warm and it's, you know, it's anti-static. It has a lot of benefits. But some people are allergic to wool, so there are other materials that you can use. And of course, you can get tiles rather than broadloom. So in offices, carpet tiles are very useful. And the good thing about tiles is, you know, if you damage one, you can just take it away and put another one down there. And if you happen to be renting a premises, whether it's an office or a home, you can take them with you when you leave. And an old product that's been around since I was a kid, lino. Good old lino. You know, it's one of the most natural products that you can make, and it's become very designer again. It's made from natural materials like linseed oil, recycled wood, cork dust, limestone, and natural colouring. It's warm, it can be used in commercial applications, it can be used in childcare centres, healthcare centres. It doesn't attract mould and mildew, and you know, it's a great product and it's very easy to clean. And you can get great colours, and you can mix colours, and you can make patterns, and you can be very creative with it. So it's a great product. It's been around for a long time. And of course, timber. We all love, I think, the warmth of timber and the look of timber, and it's a great product. Not just for flooring, it has lots of uses, you know, windows and doors and panelling and exposed beams and many, many, many uses. But again, you know, you've got to make sure that it comes from certified timber. We don't want to be using old growth timbers, and that's where the certification FSC and PEFC comes into it. So these are some of the tools, you know, that as designers we can use to know what it is that we're buying and to have some sort of assurance that what we're using is not toxic. And then bamboo. Bamboo's really had a lot of press in the last probably 5 years. I mean, it's been around a long time, but it seems to be used more and more. I love the furniture on this page. So many things you can make out of bamboo. Our friend down the front here knows all about this, don't you? His photos. Yeah, I mean, even I'm learning more about it. I didn't know that you could make so many amazing things out of it. And this really is an amazing product too. You know, you can get 4 crops a year. It's sustainable, it's eco-friendly, it's renewable and durable. I actually found out today that it is has its own natural pesticide in it. And yeah, and it's sort of impervious to these chemicals, but it produces its own, so bugs don't like it. I think that's great. It has lots of uses: flooring, panelling, furniture. And it doesn't, no, it does. It draws up water to soil levels and improves the soil. That's amazing, isn't it? And very low water usage, there you go. And high carbon capture, exactly. What a fantastic product. And you can actually use the material itself to build structures from too. It's that strong, isn't it? Yeah. I think there's a beautiful resort up in Asia somewhere that's used bamboo to build this amazing barley, yeah. Thank you from the floor. Do feel free to correct me if I say something wrong. And then, of course, there's another product that's been around forever. Ian and I put this in our house up in Byron when we built it in 1982. Good old cork tiles. But the thing we didn't realise afterwards is that the polyurethane that we put over the top of it, and that nearly killed us, was very toxic. So anyway, next time we know differently. But now you can use apparently a natural wax to seal cork floors, but you can make so many other things out of cork as well, as you can see here. I mean, the uses are pretty well limitless. And of course, lighting. Well, you all know about LEDs, don't you? I hope so. I mean, there's lots of lovely light fittings out there. Look beautiful, don't you? But it's the light source that we need to talk about. So it's, you know, it's the LED. It's more energy efficient, has a longer lifespan, compact in size, lower temperature and cheaper to run. And they're getting better all the time. Exactly. And VOC paints, VOC-free paints. People talk about low VOC. I reckon you just go for no VOC. If you don't have to have VOCs in the paint, why bother? So there's lots of low VOC paints. You all know what low VOCs are, don't you? Volatile organic compounds. They're all those nasty chemicals that give off that terrible smell that can make us quite sick. Why would you use these things? You know, it's all these things that you put into your house that have got these glues and dyes and chemicals. All those things that we're breathing in, especially if we're living in a house 90% of the time we're indoors, you know, what's that doing to our health? That's why there's a lot of very sick people around in our environment, and people don't really appreciate what our interiors and how much they contribute to our health and our well-being, and how much the products we use do as well. And then, of course, I had to put these up. These are your upcycled furniture, you know, the things made from timber offcuts. But, you know, they're creative. Why not? Why not use these things and make something interesting out of them? Seat belts from post-industrial consumer waste. You know, it's a cool chair. Seat belts. Yeah. Seat belts again. It's cool. Made from paper and flour, this chair. Made by some students, actually. I don't know how strong it is. Don't know whether it would be able to go into mass production, but, you know, it's cool. It's made from old newspapers and flour and water. What's that? Coca-Cola bottles. Recycled drink bottles. There's lots of people doing things like this. I mean, I'd prefer not to have the drink bottles in the first place, but I'd rather have something like this done to them than end up in landfill. Pallets. Somebody actually went into production with this office furniture using pallets, recycled pallets. And cardboard. Have you heard of the company Carton? K-A-R-T-O-N? They make furniture out of cardboard. I'm told that 30 people can stand on that bed without it collapsing. Good for kids' bedrooms. And of course, tyres. Have you ever seen the tyre mountains around the world? How many tyres there are out there? Good to be doing something with them. But if you don't like that look and you don't want to do this kind of upcycled retro sort of thing, you know, there's lots of beautiful furniture that's made today out of renewable sources, you know, ethical practices, beautiful design that will last a long time. And they're out there. These are all GECA certified pieces. I sat in this lovely sofa here when I went to a furniture company in Sydney a couple of weeks ago. It's really quite lovely. And it also comes in a sofa. So, you know, furniture doesn't have to look odd. Your houses don't have to look weird. They can look very conventional, very normal, to a certain extent. And there are lots of choices that you can make. Now, the next slide is one of the things that I'm probably most passionate about and will resonate with a couple of people in the room. Replica furniture. The elephant in the room. Nobody likes to talk about it. Everybody uses it. You don't. But nobody really knows how much damage this furniture does, not just to our industry, but to the consumers, because they don't know where this stuff comes from. They don't know what's in it. They don't know that the paint on some of the replica furniture out there has got lead in it. You know, they just think, yeah, that's a good deal. I've got that fabulous Eames chair. or that fabulous whatever it happens to be, you know. If I see, so as a magazine editor, I see hundreds and hundreds of projects come across my desk every week, every year. And I am sick to death of seeing the bloody Eames chair in every frickin' lounge room. I mean, why aren't people being a bit more creative? Just because that person's got one of these and it's cool, why do you have to go and buy a replica and stick it in your house so that you feel like, you know, you're keeping up with the Joneses? It does my head in, you know? And it's not just the egg or the, you know, the Barcelona or the Eileen Gray. I mean, it's, honestly, I just find it staggering that so many people use this furniture. And, you know, if you own a piece of original furniture, like I do, that I've had for 30 years, in fact, I've had some original furniture since I was born, you know the difference between that stuff and the real stuff, and why it is what it is, why it costs what it costs. You know, you can't take your replica rubbish to an auction house and get back what you paid for it, you know. But you can take a real, you know, a piece. There's a beautiful egg chair in Vamped in Sydney. I don't know whether you know that, Richard. It came from the Opera House, and it's one of the original ones. You know, the design's changed a tiny bit over the years, but this was apparently in the Opera House. $18,000, you know. Huh. Could you tell me that, please? Because we aren't making enough noise, and we're buying it, and designers are sadly specifying it, especially in commercial premises, like with how many Tolix chairs do you see out there these days? Every second restaurant's got one, but they're not the real one. You know? Do you know what the Tolix chairs are, don't you? Fantastic chair, but they're, I mean, anyway, it does my head in. So as designers, we need to stop specifying this stuff, and we need to lobby hard to get it out of the supply chain. Anyway, that's my bit. And I'll tell you what I'd like to do with all of this. I'd like to set fire to it. But, of course, that wouldn't be very environmentally friendly, would it? So look for certification, but it's not always available, so you have to use your judgment. And then there's another thing that as designers we can look at, and it's called product stewardship. And it's something I believe that all companies should do, whether it's furniture, whether it's white goods, whether it's cars, whatever it is. And product stewardship is where the companies that made the product in the first place takes ultimate responsibility for it at the end of its life. Now, you can either refurbish it for possible reuse by the existing owner, take it back, clean it up, put it back out again, or on-sell it in its existing condition, or give it away, or disassemble the product, use all those materials and turn it into another product again. And there are companies that are doing that. Not as many as there should be, but there are. And let's face it, what do you do with your old fridge? You put it out on the nature strip, council comes and takes it away, and it goes to away land. It does, as long as it goes back again, you know, yeah. But you know, these things need to be considered. If you're making a product, be responsible for it and take it back again. You know, it's a business, as I said in the beginning. This is a business opportunity. Trash, treasure. It's, you know, don't just chuck it away and let it be something that I'm talking about look like. Well, recently we had the Green Interior Awards in Sydney, which some of you came to, I know. Cameron Rosen and Anthony Lieberman, who are very passionate about sustainability and design. And the awards this year, they're the International Interior Awards. Australia picked up about 8 of the awards, I think, but the overall winner was actually from South Africa. So it wasn't all just given to Australian companies. But I want to show you some of those awards and just show you how innovative people are when it comes to sustainability and sustainable design. The first 3 slides are not from the awards, but these are just projects. Sorry, I'll skip that and come back to it. See, I get carried away and forget about the slides. So this is vintage furniture in a contemporary house in America. It's in its original condition, but it's been beautifully looked after. I mean, this is mid-century furniture, and I think it still looks great, don't you, today? Yeah. Now, this is my sister. She loves to go to the flea markets in Paris and in London, or if somebody drops a sofa on the side of the road in England, she picks it up, gets it, brings it home, has it recovered, and this is what you can do with it. It's all stuff from the flea markets. Now, not everyone likes this style, but I think it looks amazing, and it means that stuff doesn't go into landfill. But you've also got some lovely pieces. You know, look at this gorgeous French chair and this lovely sofa. There's some lovely pieces in there. So, you know, it can be a different style for everybody. And then this is a New York loft apartment using vintage furniture, which again I think looks fabulous. Looks as great today as probably did 40 years ago, if that's your style. Now, from the Green Interior Awards, this was the hospitality winner. It's called Mama Son in Surrey Hills. And the owners, Gemma and Adam, were able to create this amazing venue using recycled timber, second-hand furniture, stuff they found. There was an old boat that they found up at the back of Pittwater, and they've turned that into the sashimi bar. And it's all just stuff that they've picked up, you know? I just think it's really creative and interesting, and it doesn't cost a fortune either. And I think it's probably a very funky place to go. I haven't been there, but it's on the agenda. And this is the public brewery in Victoria. Yeah, I'm not sure, Alan, about the chairs, sorry. We didn't ask for, yeah, anyway. Anyway, it was once the local area's feed and grain store. So the whole idea of having this old store to make this very environmentally friendly bar, that was part of it, you know, getting a place that had some sort of connection to the local environment. The owners were committed to the idea of just using recycled and refurbished materials, and a lot of it was second-hand. They did a call out to the community for bits and pieces, and they turned this into this lovely venue. But I'm not sure about the chairs. Sorry about that. Now, in the residential section, Jill's House by Green Sheep Collective was a renovation of a poorly lit terrace house that was cold. And they've turned it into a lovely functional light-filled house using a lot of passive solar design, you know, great lighting, solar design, you know, nice natural materials, some recycled materials, some old furniture still in there, or should I say old furniture, second-hand furniture. And yeah, you know, sustainable materials used in the new furniture that they bought as well. And the Slot House by SSD Studio was a renovation of another house. They've used the existing kitchen cupboards that have been reused, bamboo floors. The lights are actually made out of cardboard. Water-saving appliances, LEDs, reused furniture. But again, it has a lovely look about it, I think, don't you? Yeah, looks great. And this is the Carbon Positive House by Archiblocks. I don't know if you know much about it. It's not actually a house. It's like a prototype for the potential to build a house using these ideas. It's sort of a holistic approach to considering materials and construction methods. It incorporated carbon-neutral materials, including glues and paints that are soy-based and formaldehyde-free, plant-based paints with no VOCs, and also produces more energy on site than it actually uses. And then this was actually the award that I was asked to present. It's the retirement village. Not quite sure why they asked me to do that, but not saying anything. Anyway, this is the Lend-Lease one, and they were dedicated to an approach that would retain the building but allow for its expansion and refurbishment. So the core principles behind their intentions were that of community, longevity and sustainability through clever design and material selection. They used second-hand furniture, or recycled furniture. They've got recycled water, solar generation of electricity, LEDs, water and waste-efficient fixtures, fittings and appliances, as well as a general selection of furniture, furnishings, carpets, with a strong commitment to recyclability or renewability. And I think that they've achieved a great result here. And then the runner-up was the Mernda Retirement Village Clubhouse by Stockland. Again, similar things, lots of recycled materials, LEDs, solar generation of electricity, water and waste-efficient fixtures, selection of products and soft furnishings that were made from recyclable, renewable materials, with a strong commitment to sustainability, of course, as well. So to summarise, why do we need sustainable interior design? Well, obviously for the environmental benefits, for the low impact on people and for the environment. Economic benefits, energy conservation, low maintenance, longer life, potential sales value. Health benefits, greater thermal comfort, visual quality, better air quality and a connection to nature. And social and community benefits, reduced strain on infrastructure, healthier ecosystems, reduced use of natural resources, and an improved quality of life. So by creating beautiful, sustainable, and resource-efficient interiors that are light-filled, comfortable, durable and healthy, you'll be contributing to less environmental pollution, a deeper connection with nature, happier clients, and a great return on your investment. And you might even win a Green Interior Award. So the choices that you and I make will have impact in the future. You're the industry leaders and the influencers. You have the opportunity to make people change their minds about what they buy, influence how they build, the materials they use. You have the ability to make a difference. And I believe that by working together, all of us together, we can make a difference. We can have a sustainable future for us and for the generations yet to come. We're all in this together. We want to have less of this and more of this, and less of this and more of this, because there ain't no planet B. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Now, you're going to stay with us because we're going to introduce the panel now, which is the next part of the presentation. I think you used two key words there. One was influence and one was education. And, of course, that's why we're all here tonight, is to so that we can influence one another to understand future-proofing our interiors. I'd like to introduce our four panellists, if I may. Now, each panellist has been selected because of their speciality, if you like. So we're going to be taking questions as part of the panel. So please understand or listen to the specialities of each of the guests, because that will help you direct the questions. And there are some giveaways at the end of the night, which is part of your question on the back of question analysis on the back of the sheet here. I'd like to introduce Chris Boss, who is the founder of Lava, adjunct professor at UTS, and was a key designer at the Beijing Water Cube. He is a recipient of the Emerging Architect and Perspectives 40 Under 40 for Asia's Rising Stars. His work combines digital workflow, nature's principles, and the latest digital fabrication technologies, I should say. Please welcome Chris. Alan Boyd, the chair maven, originally trained as a furniture cabinet maker, I should say, in the shipbuilding industry in Scotland, moved to New Zealand in the late 80s, where he was in sales and marketing in the commercial furniture industry. This led to being a director of one of the largest commercial furniture groups in Australasia. Please welcome Alan. Richard Mineo established Cult in 1997, and his own uncompromising high standards are expressed at every level of his business. Cult is the realisation of Richard's passion, commitment and dedication to providing the finest quality products as well as excellent customer service. Please welcome Richard. Daphne Tyle is Australian Living's in-house sustainable interior decorator and consultant. Daphne has been involved in designing residential interiors for over 10 years and involved in the design industry, I should say, for over 20 years. When designing interiors, Daphne focuses on obtaining environmentally friendly and sustainable products that suits the client's lifestyle and needs. Please welcome Daphne. Now we're going to make this quite casual, and Kate, you're going to help direct the questions and certainly answer them as well. Absolutely, you're involved in this, don't you? Go away. Maybe just to start the question process is, Kate, you mentioned, and this is something that actually resonated with myself and I'm sure part of the audience as well, is that you mentioned that the green concept was...
The wheelchair.
The wheelchair. Oh. Now there's a message here. We've had retirement living, we've now got the wheelchair. There is definitely a message coming through, Kate. Stay with us, won't you? Kate, you mentioned the fact that sustainable interiors and the whole green message is getting, or the pricing or cost affordability is dropping.
Yes.
Now, when we say dropping, does that mean that it's affordable? I think that's a question everybody wants to know.
What's affordable? You know, everyone's got a different opinion about affordable, but it's becoming more affordable because more people are demanding and more people are using. So it's like economies of scale. There's more demand, price comes down. But again, what's affordable? I mean, how much does a house cost to build? That, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think it's a message we have to get across because long term it is affordable.
You have to get across. You don't have to spend $8,000 a square metre on building a house. You don't. Most people can't afford that kind of money.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, architects have a bit of a reputation for specifying houses that cost too much to build. I'm sorry, it's true. But, a lot of clever architects out there who can do it for less. And I think that that's the thing that we need to be doing. We need to have fantastic houses for everybody. We all should be living in energy efficient houses. We should all be living in passive design houses. It's not rocket science really. And the thing that bumps the price up, I mean, Chris, you probably, you have one. Yeah, but you're the architect in the room, I'm just the lowly, the lowly magazine editor with an opinion. But you don't have to spend a fortune, is what I'm saying. And by being a bit resourceful and building houses that aren't quite big, a lot of the houses are out there, that we can do this. Ian and I did it. We didn't have a lot of money. We built a fantastic passive design house that cost me, our first electricity bill was $13.
Probably it comes down to the way that the house is being designed also. As far as looking at the seasons and what influence that has and how much energy consumption you need because of that.
Yeah, sure. Can I ask the audience, I mean, you're at the coalface here, affordability, cost, does it come into the equation?
Exactly. Can we afford not to? Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the education process, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Now, Kate, also just to refer back to your presentation, VOC. Now, I heard you actually almost went over that quite quickly because it's so, I guess, common. It's common language to us.
It is common language.
Yet, I know that in a lot of the presenting work that I do, it's still not with the consumer.
No.
Yeah.
And that's why we need, you, as I said, you're the professionals, you're the people that can influence people and talk to them about these sorts of things. Because someone came to see me this week, and I said it was a flooring company, and he was talking to me about some of these VOCs and telling me, I can't exactly say what he said, but it was about the effects that they have on our hormones and how they can change the makeup of our hormones. And, this is why there's so much cancer out there, guys. Oh, sorry. Don't I talk loud enough? This is why there's so much sickness and illness out there, and, we don't really know the effects. We can only surmise a lot of the time, but I think people do know that some of these things do actually cause major changes in our DNA. We've got to be so careful what we're using. Why? What is it Hippocrates said? First, do no harm. Please, it's not hard.
Kate, on that also, I mean, the fact you mentioned that you put health there as well. Personally, I don't think we hear enough about that, and the whole carcinogenic, the influence of all these new diseases that we're finding is part of product, and it can be. Once again, I invite the audience to contribute here because we're not seeing it promoted, and it is a byproduct of a lot of this stuff. Any opinion on that?
Sorry?
Sorry?
I experienced it just with using nail polish, and within a day I came up with big welts on my chin, and I didn't know what it was, and they just grew, and I suspected it was nail polish because I don't wear it very often. So I took it off, and it took a few days to recede, and a couple of weeks later I thought I'm going to just see whether this is the product that caused that, and I put it back on. Instantly within the day, welts came up again. So it's a really serious issue, and I think we have to bring it up to our clients, and we have to take that into consideration because it can cause serious disease. Thank you.
Actually, Alan, could you just talk about something you mentioned earlier on? You were doing some testing. You had somebody doing some testing of replica products as against original products?
Yeah, so I've got a geek mate. So he's a total bother. And I'll just shout. I'm Scottish, I don't need a microphone. So this geek guy, he's had this really cool thing. It's actually on the Mars rover, and it goes round, it scans rocks and sends back digitally what the composition is. So I thought, can employ here. So I went to those who must not be named and bought a couple of replica colic stools and got a French one. So yes, advertised in a magazine. And I scanned them, So the first one, so it does a surface test. So after that surface test, you would take it back to the lab and really granulate it and get to the core elements of what was there. But the surface test is also used by the US government. So go in, if they're testing anything that comes in, they'll scan it and test it and go, okay, that's got X in it, we're not let into the US. So it's more than 90 parts per million, it's not allowed in the US. So a scan of the first replica products was 90 parts per million, so that would get to the US straight away. Now that's just the surface test. For the French company, Collex themselves did a replica test, and they got 56,000 parts per million right through it. Did the next one, and it was over 1,000 parts per million of mercury. Okay, so that was relatively, it was on a spectrum of zinc, so you couldn't do it. Let's take it back, to sure. Now, you might not give a shit about authenticity. You might not give a shit about the poor bastard in China who's the end of a production line making something. You might give a shit what goes into the Yangtze River or something. But if you you've got a bit of lead in your house, which is flaking off, and you've got a kid eating it, yeah, death, brain damage. But of course, where does all these replicas go? You know, every second cafe when the style goes out, because I think that's one of the major things is that we should just ban the word style. Style and design is very differently. You know, it's very different. The thing about design, you know, not about style, because the minute that style goes out, it gets chucked in its landfill. So.
Sorry, we only have one mic, but we've got the webinar going, so we need to hear voice. So apologies for the roaming mic, but we do need to hear it.
I've been specifying hemp for clients for about 8 years now, and it still amazes me that more people aren't using it. And it's one product that is environmentally friendly and cheaper than linen, lasts longer, and it's actually, apart from all the other benefits you mentioned, it's actually much better for insulation. So for curtains, it's a no-brainer. So everyone needs to use hemp.
From cloth or Beatrice and hemp gallery?
No, I do some work with Beatrice, and then we print them. So commercial clients can actually choose the base cloth, and then we print them with the right paints as well.
Well done.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
We might just say, Kate and I we had our first hemp agency back in 92. So we've been dealing with hemp. I've been involved in the whole process of hemp since the development in Australia, getting it certified and getting the low THC. I think it's an important product that needs to be further developed. It used to grow wild on the Hunter River. I remember my cousins before hemp was something you could smoke. It was readily available on the Hunter River. A lot of the older cadets at some of the private schools used to partake of the product. But it's been a product which we all know has been around for a long time. And Kate and I had our first hemp agency back in the 90s because we saw it as a product of the future.
And once again, the two words, influence and education, Kate, you mentioned, I'll go back to those, is that you are in a position of influence. And talking about the hemp side of things, my previous background was textiles, wholesaling, importing, exporting. The industry doesn't get it. I was one of the first wholesalers to introduce it, so I totally get where you're coming from. But the industry doesn't get it. They need you to influence them. So we're all talking about influence at all levels, whether it's corporate or whether it's residential. So please take that initiative. Sorry, Daphne.
What I have found is that if you start with the individual and you try to educate them and actually advise them that the products they're going to have or use are healthy for them, they seem to change their mindset on a few levels. Financially, they're ready to spend the money, and that also has a ripple effect by impacting the production and the environment and on an ethical level. So as we've been saying, education is very important, and it's up to us to actually pass that information on to our clients and not just accept that they say if the client's not interested. It really comes down to information and how that's given to the client.
But just while we're on that topic, a few years ago I did a room which was all, I'd like to contribute to this if I may. It was a room at one of the home shows, 8x5, everything was sustainable in the room, and it became the seminar program for this particular show. After I did one session, this lady from the audience came up and she said, "John, would you mind just spending time going through each of those elements?" Which I did. And as I started to go through all the products, she started to tear up, and I lost my delivery because I thought I'd offended her with something. And I tried to retract what I had said, and she said, "No, it's okay." She could see I was struggling, and she was composing herself, and she said, "No, it's okay, it's okay." She said, "What I didn't realise is that our 19-year-old son suffers from so much allergy, we thought we had to move home." This is a very real story of a very sort of middle market consumer who had no idea about the benefits of sustainable products. So there's a huge message out there. And once again, at the product level, we're in a position of influence. Richard, in regard to replica furniture, how do you sit with this? It's part of your life.
Well, I think Kate sort of summed up a lot of my passion, and the passion's not necessarily, I'm like Alan, I'm a cabinet maker by trade. That's how I started in this business, and I guess the thing that I look at is longevity. I mean, I think that's part of the environmental story for me. So if you buy something that lasts, build something that lasts, and I guess the confusing messages that I was getting some time ago with the bodies like GECA and those sorts of things was designing things to be disassembled. And my view was that you were being quite prescriptive. Now, I haven't gone on the replicas yet, but it was quite prescriptive about what to do and actually giving designers, product designers, industrial designers, the view that something had to die. Because everything was being designed with the view that in 5 years' time you're going to pull it apart and put it in the recycling boxes. My view was that we're fortunate enough, and I say that's probably blessed, probably like Alan, to have products that have been around since 49 or since 25 or since 30. And those sorts of things, we've seen the life cycle of people coming back 30 years later and buying a cover for a sofa they've had for 30 years. Now, there's two aspects then. One is that product's not designed for disassembly. It is designed to put a new cover on. So when you look at the things that have worked in the past, why do we try and reinvent these sorts of things? And of course, what they've done over the years is change the materials with materials that are better for the environment, which weren't available then. So when you look at things like the egg chair, the foam's different today to what it was then. Hence why you might say that the one that was sold from the Opera House looks a bit different. It's just the foam, really, that's different today. Now, when we go about replica versus original, I mean, I guess my view on this is probably without being, I hear the story from the person we were talking about earlier, that the people that sell the originals are making too much money. That's the argument from his perspective, or from their perspective. And my view is I know where he lives and I know where I live. And I know what I do. I'm here, he's not here. I'm here about education, about why you should buy, not necessarily my product, but good product. And I guess I know what our manufacturers do. I know how long they've been going for. I know the working conditions that their people work in. And I think, don't get me wrong, I mean, I've got nothing against manufacturing in China. I do believe it's not China that's the problem. It's the Western society that's the problem, where people profiteer from the fact that this sells, let's get it made. So my view on this is that actually, if you look at it, I know what we can land an egg chair from China for, and I know what I land one for. I know who's making more money at the prices that he sells them for. So it's not really about that. It's not really about that. It's about also the Australian design. I mean, if you think about it, you don't need to buy an $8,000 or $18,000 egg chair. You can buy a $400 chair made in Australia. So and there's a lot of great. I mean, I think Australian design is coming to the forefront now. I mean, we've been fairly fortunate to launch some lovely collections of late that we're selling really well. So again, I think, why do that? I mean, Kate talked about the look. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I mean, it's be original by putting something original. It doesn't have to be an original piece. It could be that recycled table that you saw made out of timber that's good for the environment. But and I guess the scary thing from my perspective is really the culture that we have in this country. I mean, you compare it to Scandinavia, for example, where obviously I was only introduced 19 years ago when we started our business. I mean, it's really very, very different, and I think I don't understand why we need to buy the copy Paulson or the copy egg or the copy Tolix. Why?
It's a little interesting. Is that a cultural thing in an adolescent country, really? Because it's not that old, and whereas Germany, and Chris, and you're sort of obviously, I remember going to Orgatec a few times, and in replica stands just getting taken away just before they're going to open because they were arrested because it's illegal in Britain now. But Germany does tend to have a. Do you see the difference in maybe that cultural aspect of design in Germany than in, say, Australia?
Yeah, so I'm not an expert in replicas, but I certainly have an opinion. And I was absolutely astonished in Australia that you can. I live in Paddington, and 100 meters from where I live is the biggest shop of the apparently not to be named brand tonight. And it's unbelievable that you walk past this shop and it's full of this stuff, and it's, you know, it's kind of sexy to see all these things, and there's a certain attraction to it. But when you think about the designers who actually design these things, and a lot of them are living designers, you know, I distinguish a little bit between like a Barcelona chair from 1927 who had a pretty good run for like 90 years, and a chair by Mark Eussen, say, or David Trowbridge does wonderful lights from New Zealand, and the copies are actually not much cheaper than the originals, but David Trowbridge goes to work every morning and wonders where to get his money from to design the next light, while someone in Paddington sells the copy. So that is just absurd. And yes, in Germany, in a lot of European countries, it's illegal. It's like robbing a bank, essentially. It's, you know, I don't know what the legal terminology for it is, but it's gaining advantage on someone else's, at someone else's costs, essentially.
We're responsible for it. There should be some way that we actually hold it.
And so, sure.
I think the interesting thing at the moment, there's a lot of development of hotels, and I think that's a classic example of where we get to deliver furniture to the rooms, right? And then the developer or the project managers, whoever, use that room to get it signed off, and then basically get, you know, 12 months later, once you found out you lost the job, you haven't lost the job and other products in there, you've lost the job and your own product has been made in China and it's here. So who does that? I mean, I guess what is the responsibility? And I know about the age of the designer, but I think I also look at it this way. I think if you were the son of the designer or you were part of that family, that is like your house. That's the asset that you've worked for many years, and you've struck it with one product. Why should someone steal that from you? If the will has been to give that to you to continue with, like Eames, I don't think there should be a date range on it. My view is you're stealing. Doesn't matter how old it is, you are stealing from someone that created something. It's like you build a building, it's there forever. Could you imagine 100 years later someone builds the same building right beside it and just replicates it?
Really comes down to a bit of lack of imagination of the population as a whole. It's beautiful design is at a price. That's just a known fact. Replica furniture makes that attainable to everybody, and it gives everybody the lack of imagination to go, oh, I want that, instead of, oh no, it's out of my price range. Let's look what's around with the designers from here, from the country, who are doing things already, and look at what they're doing and see if that becomes part of their field of view and what they can use in their homes and in their lives. Rather, without that, with replica furniture, it just puts them all into a big bracket where they go, okay, we can all have replica Eames chairs and Tollex chairs and whatever, and we don't have to look around, we can just follow the herd. And it creates a lack of focus of the people who are trying to do stuff in the country they live in. So, you know.
I was going to say, I don't think it's just lack of imagination. A lot of people are not trained in design, and they see what they see in beautiful magazines and they don't know the difference. I think it's also up to the people that produce the real thing with the real ingredients. It's the same as selling food, and you say this is cardboard food and this is better food. And I think there is an onus on designers and also manufacturers to really spell out. Designers sometimes don't have the time to go, you know, they trust also, there are some good companies out there that you don't really know whether they're selling you the replica or not. There's no, not often the price reflects what they're selling. So it's very hard for us to know. So it would be good, say from a designer's perspective, it would be very useful to have something that the people that sell the rail furniture to say, these are the differences, and you can tell a replica. It's like how to spot the cheat. You know, what does the cheat have, and what does the real product have, and educate that way, so people can be more informed in really spotting the difference and the health benefits of that.
Mind if I can reply for this one? I think the main responsibility in something like that is the interior designer, to teach his clients what to buy, where to buy.
What I'm saying is we need to be told by the producers of the products.
But that's your job. That's as an interior designer.
The reality of designing is not always do you have the time to go into. Say, for example, I work a lot in the public sector with councils and that, and sometimes you can't even specify the real furniture that you want from this producer, because by the time it comes to the builder, they replace it with whatever, and it's very hard to keep track of things like that. And although we enforce a lot of what we can enforce, if it's made easy for us by the suppliers, really educating us as to what the difference is. I didn't know that reproduction furniture had lead in it, or whether we don't specify because it doesn't last in public. In the public forum, in public libraries, you need the real thing that lasts a long time. So you need quality. But today I learned things that I didn't know about replica furniture, other than sorry.
Exactly authentic design, right?
Right.
Yeah. Look, I think I mean, obviously we're talking about sustainability, so I just want to go back there for a moment. But I guess anything that says they have to say replica in front of it. So that's number one. I guess from my perspective, if it's a replica and one is $6 and one is $800, $6,800, there's got to be differences. I can assure you. Right. So the minute replica is a nice word for copy, right? It is a nice way to say, no, but, well, those that don't, really, you should just inform the original and we can stop that.
I was going to say, in one project we had from a reputable supplier, we had specified something that was called a rhombi polypropylene stool. And we specified it in this project, and we thought it was a forgotten library. And when that was out to tender, we got contacted by the original designer of this, and you said, you know, in your thing it says that it comes from this company. That's a rip-off of my product. So we took it to the client and we said, look, this is a rip-off. There was a price increase, but the client decided to go with the Australian. But it was actually the designer contacting us because we had it didn't say replica, it didn't say rip-off when we specified that other product.
Although there shouldn't be a replica debate, I suppose I've been doing this and Rich has been doing it for so many years, we actually get a bit sick of it because it's like, whoa, but then we think everybody knows this. But again, change tack. I hate the word sustainability. I think sustainability is nonsense, actually. I'll just throw that one in. I think it's just this measly little word, and I think it's a marketing problem that sustainability has, and we should get rid of that. Have thrivability. Thrivability. Take it beyond measly little word. You know, it's sustainable. They get the idea of another German I met before, another intelligent man such as Chris, a guy called Professor Dr. Michael Brongart, who started the whole. With Professor McDonough, the architect Bill McDonough, MBDC Design Protocol. And I had him down to Australia to be keynote speaker about 10 years ago when I was with Herman Miller. And he opened the Green Cities Conference and he said, I don't believe in sustainability. And I'll paraphrase him. He said, Ian, what's your relationship like with Kate? And you said, sustainable? No, it's not very good. So there's got to be more than sustainability in this world, and I think we're in a world of abundance. I think the idea that you know, we've got more and more population. We had cameras, we had everything. We had big stereo systems. We got one of these now. We don't need as
You've got to say something. I wish you took 2 or 3 more questions, and I have one.
Okay. You're in charge. So you're paying the
bill. my question is to Chris Boss. Chris Boss, you are an architect of the future, and I know you are designing all over the world large-scale building and master plan for cities. So how do you design, and what is what's the city of the future? What do you have in mind when you're designing a city or a building like that?
In a nutshell. No, if I want to relate that question to the talk today, which was fantastic, one thing that I learned about sustainability today is that sustainability is actually not about renouncing on things and on going back to the past and going back to Malambimbi and only growing your organic garden and kind of living a reclusive life, but it's actually about high technology, about all these new materials, all these new products, all these new applications. And I like to think that architecture in the future is about combining things that have developed over millions of years and things that I like to call nature that surrounds us, that has established principles that work, that are all based on sustainability and that never change. And combine these ideas of nature with the principles of technology that also surrounds us but constantly changes. Architecture is always built for eternity, but the truth is that the architecture that we built in the 70s is now completely obsolete because it wasn't designed to be future open, to be updated, to be changeable. So I think architecture in the future has to combine these ideas of ecosystems, of biodiversity, of organisms, but combine it with technologies and be, like your iPhone, constantly updated, adaptable, plugged into, and change over time. And so combining things that never change with things that constantly change would be, for me, the summary.
I've got one quick question for every panellist. In one sentence, I'd like you, from your heart, to give a pitch about sustainability that the audience can potentially take to their clients in one sentence from your heart, please.
I did 4,000 words on it just earlier. One thing to take to your client. Well, gee, Anthony, that's a pretty tough question, but it's about, to me, sustainability is not about just the status quo, but it's about living and, it's about living now, and it's about having a future that we can go towards, and it's the way that we do that. To me, it's about the future. It's about my granddaughter, who's a year old. It's all about having a great life, but giving as much as you take, giving back, and not leaving a huge footprint when you go. Yeah. I told you I can't do one sentence. I'm a magazine editor. I write lots of words.
That's a presentation.
I think for me, the main thing that I always try to express is that it's not only about us, it's a whole picture. You have to be holistic when you look at anything. Start it from, if you're looking at a design product, and then moving backwards and seeing where the chain of custody comes from. How are you not only being affected by what you're using, how is the environment, how is the factory, how are the people being affected, because we don't live alone, we don't live on our own, and it's really important to consider the whole planet and look at it, because you're lucky enough to be sitting here, but someone else is making that product. How are they being impacted? Wouldn't you want them to have a good quality of life, just like you're going to enjoy that product and to be healthy? And so it just, once again, just goes through. Anyway.
Another presentation.
Sorry, I'm going to be passionate about it. Yeah.
We have a sentence which has really come from within, build things that last. I'm going to throw it another way, buy things that last.
Well done. I'll paraphrase Ray Eames rather than Charles Eames, who I usually quote, but what works is better than what looks good. Thank you.
So, sentence. We like to in the whole idea of less is more, less is more, and so on. We like to say we want to do architecture that produces more with less. More because we don't want to stop doing things. We don't want to go back and kind of stopping progress. We want to live a better life, more enjoyable life, and it will be a bigger life. But we want to do it with less material, less energy, and ultimately less cost, because that's also where the market is heading.
Thank you. Would you please thank Kate St. James and our panel for this evening. Thank you. Now, just really quickly, Chris has 2 books here that he has kindly given for giveaways tonight, called Lava. And there are 2 questions. Maybe, Kate, can I ask you to maybe hold that one for me? Excuse me, so I'm juggling this one here. And there are questions on the back of your sheet. I'm going to ask 2 questions, and somebody who puts their hand up to answer it will receive or be the winner. So, Kate, you can choose the first hand. You can choose the first hand that comes up. What is meant by chain of custody? You've all been listening tonight? Kate, who? Sorry?
Lady down the front? Yeah, and I got confused with stewardship.
Okay.
Lady in the colour.
Knowing that every part of the chain of the production, from design to the end purpose, is treated with the same amount of detail and responsibility.
There we go. Congratulations. Explain product stewardship.
The product stewardship is to produce something that at the end of its life comes back to you. So you're responsible for the product after its end of life. So you take it back and you either reuse the components, like Herman Miller and those people. They separate the materials and they take ownership, or they refurbish, but it goes back to the producer. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, that was a presentation as well. Congratulations. Okay, once again, could we please thank our sponsors? We have Mainline, Spec-Net, we have the Brickworks here for hosting the evening today, Big Ass fans who are not here. I have real problems saying that name, but you certainly don't forget it, do you? Who are not here tonight, but we'd like to thank them, and of course Ubik, and thank you for being here. Elaine, you'd like to say a few words just to wrap up?
I just want to thank you all the panelists for tonight, and I'm going to give you a little prezi, and that's for Kate.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Organic.
This is for you.
Thank you, Alain.
On dit merci.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup. And also just thank you again to Brickwork for hosting this event. Thank you for all the attendees. And just let you know, this is in Sydney, the last event we have for 2015. But we are next week doing a presentation for the architects in Brisbane, and we are going to talk about One Central Park, a green icon with a PTW architect. And that's all for 2015. And just I wish you a very joyful festive season, happy Christmas, happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and everything. Bonne année.
Thank you.
And please stay. There is plenty of food and drinks. Don't go away.
Richard. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Samantha. It was wonderful. At the moment, we're very busy. I think, before Christmas, it's just everybody's frantic. So we'll probably catch up in the new year.